Hi guys, welcome back to Geared Forwards, and today we're going to be taking a look at something a little different. This is a set by Outlery, and it's just reusable cutlery. Specifically, this is going to be the stainless steel finish option. This is what it says in the tin. It is collapsible cutlery. The overall size is roughly akin to an Altoids kit. Now, there's a lot of individual pieces in here, the vast majority of them metal. So obviously this is going to rattle around a little bit, so let's just give you a sense of that. Now obviously you're going to hear that if you throw this in a bag, but obviously that's not as bad as you might think, and that's because they've actually put some thought into dampening that sound. So let's crack on and see how it is inside. Now, just to give you an idea of the overall size, this is a 91mm Susami knife, so it's actually just a wee bit shorter than that. And when we crack it open, we actually have this little bit of silicone inside. Thanks for giving a fork, because why not have a little bit of sense of humor whilst you're trying to save the environment? Now this bit of silicone actually goes top, bottom, and then creates a bit of a separate container here. And this is what's helping reduce a lot of that rattling sound. All of the rattling is really just the pieces against each other, and these pieces aren't really given much space to rattle, period. The actual contact between the tin and the pieces is basically nil. So let's break down what's in it. This is going to give you a set of chopsticks, a fork, knife, decent sized spoon, and a little cute resting keychain. So these are obviously going to be our tips for our chopsticks. This is the knife, which, whilst not super sharp, it is nice that they include this little silicone cover. The tip for the fork, and as you can see, all the pieces are just threaded. Quite a deep bowl, which is quite nice for, say, soups, cereals, and whatnot. Now, this we will come back to. This is basically so that you can put the pieces together without over tightening them. And this adorable little guy is just a little rest so that your fork or whatnot, or your chopsticks, do not touch the surface. So these are the pieces that you put on the ends, but in terms of what you put them onto, you have these. Now you can make 3 full length handles, so that means that you can either have, say, all of these, or a set of chopsticks and, say, a spoon. So we'll just have a quick crack through going through the different assembly options, and then we'll go through some thoughts on the pros and cons of this particular set. So here we have the more traditional set assembled. Now I would say that these are decently long. They're as long, if not a little bit longer, than your normal cutlery. They have completely rounded handles. We'll go through and take a look one by one. So this is the knife, there's the branding there, and we do have a chisel grind on the knife with some nice serrations there, and a little touch of an edge there. Now the knife isn't really super sharp, but it's going to be more than enough to help get through most foods. If you have something that's really tough and you can't saw through with the serrations, you're probably best off using another knife, say like if you carry a pocket knife. But I would say this is going to do it for most jobs. It is quite short. I would have liked to have seen this, given the overall length of the utensil. I would have liked this to have been a little bit longer, because you might want to try and use this to cut open, say, a bun or a scone or that kind of thing. But it would do just fine for most meals, and it's a nice spreading surface for butter, jam, that kind of thing as well. The fork itself, give you the angle of the bend there. It's not bad. It's a fork. It does the job. There's not really much to say about it. And then the spoon is decently deep, good angle. It's a nice compromise between different kinds of spoons. and would do just fine for, say, if you use it for cereal, soup, dessert, anything between. And overall, in terms of this layout, I like it. My personal pet peeve, so to speak, with this is I'm not used to using cutlery that is completely round. So this feels a little weird in my hand, and it wants to turn. So that might just be me, although I've never really encountered fully round rod utensils before. Obviously that is part of the design so that you can easily use the chopstick option, but that does make it feel a little bit weird when you first start using them. It does get a little better. The more you use it, the more you'll get used to it, obviously. And for this, I have used this set to eat quite a bit of food at this point. I do like my food, and it works just fine. It is a comprehensive set of cutlery, as you can see. It works well, and we'll go, the main things are just overall negatives we'll go through at the end. Next up, chopsticks. So here we have the chopstick option, and as you can see, our little turtle friend is keeping the ends nice and off of the surfaces. Chopsticks themselves have a little bit of texture or grooving there to add a little bit of more grip to what you're using. Now, in terms of chopsticks, I am far from the most competent. I can eat with them. It's not going to look pretty. I might drop stuff. As far as my use with different kinds of chopsticks, these work just fine. The little bit of grooving on the end does give a nice bit of grip, something that you might inherently get from wooden chopsticks with the grain that you wouldn't really get from this polished stainless steel. They do the job, and you have enough handle left over so that you can have an accompanying spoon, say if you were to have noodles with a broth. Or if you were having something that required cutting, you could instead swap in the knife handle. Obviously, if you're using chopsticks, you probably don't have a need for the fork. And one thing that you can do if you want more options is these are two separate lengths, you can just use one piece and then have both. That is a little awkward because then you're going to have two really short utensils, but that is something you can do. Now, what do I think of the set overall? I think it's good. I think this is an excellent option. I'm happy I bought this. This cost me, at the time of purchase, it was on sale for about £23. I think this normally goes for about £30. You can get this on Amazon or in the UK, Hanes. This is a well thought out set, particularly with the silicone padding. I like the whimsical little holder. My pet peeves really are going to be that the entirely rounded cutlery is a little awkward to use when you're not using the chopsticks. It does want to turn. This little guy is entirely useless. This is meant to prevent over tightening, and it does act as a little bit of a buffer to stop rattling in the tin, and that's really all I find it useful for personally. When you're threading it together, just take your time. Don't try and force it if it feels like it's not threading together. Common sense, and it's fine. My other pet peeve is that whilst this is not the sharpest, if you're going to include a silicone cover, then this knife really could have been sharper. As it stands, this doesn't need a cover at all. It might be to stop damaging the edge when it bashes together, but I don't think that's particularly a big risk. Now, my pet peeve is the design of the sleeve. Makes it extremely awkward to actually get this out. So it goes back in just fine, but then to get it out, you have to Now, that's not the end of the world, but what I really don't like is when you're sliding what is meant to be a knife blade against a sleeve, and there is some contact between the edge and the silicone as you're doing that. It just feels like a matter of time until this just splits apart, and in which case it's really of no value when it's not particularly a sharp blade. So pet peeves there. I would have preferred to have seen a sharper blade. I think this is a great option, and people that might find this useful, people that say, work in the trucking industry where they have to spend long periods of time on the road and eat out at different places. Students, basically anyone that eats out a lot. This is going to be an ecological benefit for not using disposable cutlery, and it also covers you if you're not given disposable cutlery. Now, as sets go, this is a bit on the more expensive side, especially as this is stainless steel rather than titanium. I think it's worth it just because of how comprehensive it is and how small everything breaks down. But if you're looking for an alternative, then something really minimal and on the cheaper side is the CRKT Eaton tool. I don't have one present with me currently, or an alternative option is something like this. This is a spork designed by Light My Fire, and this is in titanium, where you have obviously the spoon on one side, and you have a fork with a bit of a serrated edge for cutting on the other. So this is significantly lighter than all of this. Obviously, the downside is that it's nowhere near as good a utensil as any of these. This is making serious compromises. I think this was a little bit cheaper as well. So when you're making a decision, obviously all of this is going to have to factor in bag size, weight size. But if you're looking for something to cover your back when you get out to the car and you find that you've got no chopsticks for your noodles, I can strongly recommend Outlery, and hey, why not give a fork? So, what do you think about the Outlery Cutlery set? Let me know in the comment section down below. Please like this video if you, I guess, liked it, and hit that subscribe button because every little helps. And until next time, have a good one, guys.